Hello, white people. The author of White Fragility takes on nice racism. This is an article on CNN.com, and it is dated Saturday, June 26th, 2021. One evening, Robin DiAngelo became a nice racist. Total cringe. DiAngelo, author of White Fragility, remembers the precise moment it happened. A friend invited her to join a few friends of hers for dinner. When DiAngeloberg arrived at the restaurant, she was excited to see that the couple waiting for them at the table was black. Oh my God, really? She was excited, huh? That's just weird. DiAngelo was a college student who had no black friends and had rarely spent any time around black people. What, does she want, an award or something? But she saw herself as a proud progressive and a feminist. She proceeded to tell the black couple how racist her family was and spent the entire evening recounting every uncensored racist joke, story, and comment she could remember them making, despite her dinner companions' growing discomfort. Yeah, awkward. Libtards just don't know how to function in society. She didn't know at the time, but DiAngeloberg was doing something she now calls credentialing, because she was making up a story about meeting black people, a conversational tactic white progressives sometimes use to show black people they are not racist. Yeah, because all this stupidity makes everybody feel awkward. Well-meaning white liberals do this by casually dropping into conversation such comments as, my grandchildren are biracial, or I don't see color, or my best friend is black, meaning they don't know how to function in society around people. DiAngeloberg thought at the time that her progressive credentials preempted any suggestion that she could be racist. I thought what I was doing was showing that I recognized how racist these things were, and I would never do them, she says now. I was a nice white progressive. No, you weren't. But what I was actually doing was both objectifying and that couple by bringing the conversation to race immediately in a way I would never have. Oh, they would have brought it up if you didn't, honey. The way I would never would have if they were white. Oh, and you would have brought it up if they were white, and you would have told white people how awful they were because, they're responsible for XYZ problems in the world. And then subjecting them to all those racist comments and jokes all night long. So here we go. Robin DiAngeloberg, author of the #1 New York best time seller, White Fragility. Her parents probably bought up all the copies to make it the bestseller. Nice racism, how progressive white people perpetuate racial harm. It should be how progressive white people make up problems that don't exist. If you're a white person who is now rewinding every conversation you've had with a person of color to see if you flashed your I am not a racist credentials, then you might understand the power of DiAngeloberg's hard-hitting new book. Oh, it's a hard-hitting one, huh? Okay, her parents are probably buying this one too. Nice racism. Well, I already read the article. In it, DiAngeloberg delivers a systematic takedown of what she calls well-meaning whiteness. How well-intentioned white people unwittingly reinforce racism. It should be titled, How Stupid People Think That They Need to Be Guilty That Brown People Exist. DiAngeloberg deploys many of the same skills that made White Fragility, which topped the bestseller lists last summer as the nation grappled with the fallout from George Floyd's murder. George Floyd. Oh boy. That incident is being investigated by was it like the UN or whatever? But I'll get into that in a minute. An anti-racist classic. She has a gift for taking abstract racial issues. Abstract? Imaginary. She should be honest. Well, she can't because of the bagel problem she's got. Abstract racial issues, made-up racial issues, and explaining them in accessible terms throughout concrete examples and colorful phrases. Nice racism is built around a startling claim. White progressives can cause the most daily harm to people of color. All right, so I can agree 100% with that. We are the ones with a smile on our faces who undermine black people daily in ways both harder to identify and easy to deny. No, they are very easy to identify. Like black and brown people can't go get an ID, and ID laws are racist. Anytime there's any sort of investigation into corruption and that person happens to be a non-white person, then it's just automatic racism. Everything is racism, though. Let's see here. To the degree that we see ourselves as not racist, we are going to be very defensive about any suggestion to the contrary. You guys are defensive anyway because you're stupid. We will see no further action needed because we see ourselves as outside the problem when you are the problem. D'Angelo Berg, an affiliate associate professor of education at the University of Washington in Seattle, poor Washington State, makes other provocative claims throughout the book. She explores how a culture of niceness protects racism, how white progressives try to outwoke one another, and why anti-racist education can sometimes create more efficient racists. What do we got here? Silence equals violence. Robin DiAngelo Berg, How White Fragility Supports Racism and How Whites Can Stop It. There is arguably no contemporary author who is as skilled at dissecting the strategies white people employ in casual social interactions to deflect or justify racism. Oh my God! Let me reread that how it should say. There is arguably no contemporary author who is as skilled at making up problems that cause people to not get along. Yet some of the most moving passages of the book are when D'Angelo Berg gets personal. She gets personal. She gets really deep into the delusion. She talks about the impact of growing up poor, takes on her critics, and explain why she believes it's okay for her to generalize about all white people. Because she's not white. CNN recently talked to D'Angelo Berg about her new book, The Recent Furor Over Critical Race Theory, and how her life has changed since the huge success of White Fragility. The conversation was edited for clarity and brevity. I don't want to talk. Okay. I don't even care. We already got the point here. We got the point. Let's see here. Okay, there are some critics who say we don't need more workshops about helping white people face their racism. We need justice, such as voting rights, political change, and Robin should talk more about that. However, you say in your book that organizing for systemic change begins with relationships. Can you elaborate on that? Oh, okay, the critics. Let's see what the response to that is. Well, think about Stacey Abrams, who is a very current example of the power of organizing and how did she and the people who work with her organize the voters in Georgia? Gerrymandering, ballot harvesting. They went door to door. They connected with voters, ballot harvesting. They built relationships. They saw each other's humanity, and I doubt that. They saw each other's votes to equal power, and they listened and heard one another. The outcome was at a systemic level. Systemic level, so weird. But it started with the interpersonal. I don't see that they can be separated. Institutions are not people, but people make up institutions, and the collective biases of those people are translated into policies and practices that infect individual lives. Here's another line from your book that intrigued me. How can an anti-racist education make white people more efficient racists? I don't care. Let's see. What do critics tend to get wrong about your work? Oh, okay. Let's see. One is a reaction to my generalizing about white people. That, of course, is a challenge to the ideology of individualism, which is the idea that we're all different and unique, and if you don't know me, you can't say anything about me. We are, of course, individuals. I don't know you and all the specifics about you, but we are also members of social groups, and by virtue of our membership in those social groups, we could literally predict whether you and your mother and me and my mother were going to survive our births based on the fact that I'm white and you're black. Wow, that's stupid. These libtards, they come up with this, what would you call it, like spin, like they're spin doctors. And all it does is create confusion, and when people are confused and stressed out, they don't stand for anything. They have no backbone. They can't stand up for themselves, and it's horrible what they're doing to young people. There's a collective shared experience, and while there are always exceptions, let's talk about the rule. How good white people derail racial progress. Oh my God. All right, I don't want to read this one anymore. Let's move on to the next one. This article, UN sets up inquiry into racism after George Floyd death. Okay, so this is on Reuters, June 19th, 2020. Oh my gosh, let's see who these people are. Delegates stand in front of a TV screen during the vote of a resolution on racism and police brutality in the wake of the death of George Floyd at the United Nations Human Rights Council in Geneva, Switzerland, June 19th, 2020. Well, look at that. That just looks so woke. What does that say on the screen? The promotion and protection of the human rights and fundamental freedoms of Africans and people of African descent against excessive use of force and other violations of human rights. Violations by law enforcement officers. Well, here we go. Let's get deep into communism. The UN Human Rights Council on Friday condemned discriminatory and violent policing after the death of George Floyd in Minneapolis last month and ordered a report on systemic racism against people of African descent. Yeah, because we're no longer a sovereign country. The 47-member state forum unanimously adopted a resolution brought by African countries. The mandate also asks UN High Commissioner for Human Rights, Michelle, I don't know how to say this last name, Bachelet, to examine government responses to peaceful protests, including alleged use of excessive force, and deliver findings in a year's time. Okay, Michelle, we're a sovereign country. Keep on your side of the street, sister. What is this name? Philonice Floyd? Philonice? The brother of the black man who... What the heck? The brother? Brother of the black man whose death under the knee of a white officer roused world protests against racial injustice. Okay, these were not protests, these were paid riots. Urged the forum on Wednesday to investigate U.S. police brutality and racial discrimination. Well, good frickin' luck to you, all of you weirdos. Burkina Faso's ambassador, how do you say these names? Dieudonné W. Desiree Sugori presented the African resolution on Friday, urging its adoption by consensus. It is important to show Africa, the Human Rights Council has heard the plight of African and people of African descent, calling for equal treatment and application of equal rights for all, he said. The Africa group had made numerous concessions in the negotiations with other countries, he added. Senegal's envoy, Kali Seck, a former council president, welcomed the consensus, telling the talks Black Lives Matter, meaning communist group. The text was watered down during the closed-door negotiations from an initial draft explicitly calling for a UN Commission of Inquiry on Racism in the United States and elsewhere. It is absurd that the final resolution passed by the United Nations strips mention of the United States, where police kill people, particularly black people, at alarmingly higher rates compared to other developed countries, said Jamil Dakwar of the American Civil Liberties Union. Jamil Dakwarberg, which led 600 activist groups in calling for the urgent debate. Man. The United Nations needs to do its job, not get bullied out of doing it. God, I get a headache from rolling my eyes at this stupidity. And hold the United States accountable, he said in a statement. Yeah, go ahead, bitches. Hold us accountable. You're going to find out. You're going to find out what we're made of. Do it. The Trump administration, which quit the forum 2 years ago, alleging bias against its ally Israel, made no immediate comment. Israel is our greatest ally. U.S. Ambassador to the UN in Geneva, Andrew Bremberg, said on Wednesday that his country was not above scrutiny as it grappled with racial discrimination, but was implementing police reforms after Floyd's killing. During the debate, Western delegations, including Australia, Germany, Italy, Poland, and the European Union, said that the United States should not be singled out. This problem does not belong to any one country. It is a problem around the world, said Australian Ambassador Sally Mansfield. Activists said that Australia had been particularly active in negotiations to take the spotlight off the United States. Well, that's weird. Germany's Ambassador Michael Ungern Sternberg, of course, a Berg, said, "We are convinced a report with a broader approach and less focus on one specific case would have been more appropriate." All right, so you guys are going to have to tell me, do you think that the problem of them trying to take over our country and change our culture is getting harder and harder for them, and they're just doubling down? Is this a doubling down move, or are they being successful and just proceeding as planned? Not quite sure. Anyway, so I want to wrap up this video. I am in Washington State, and I am here because my mother is ill, and I'm not sure if she's going to make it or not. Mom's just 70 years old. So we'll see what happens. All right, white people, thank you so much for listening. I look forward to your thoughts below.